I'd like to call the May 5th, 2020 meeting of the County Commission to order. Do we have the introductory video back, or are we still not doing that? Okay. Okay, we're not doing that. Okay. All right.
Gotta get on it.
So we'll call this meeting to order. Thank you all for being with us. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin our meeting this evening, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence to recognize the more than 70,000 people in our country who have lost their lives as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Although these large numbers can begin to seem like abstract statistics, every one of these people were unique individuals with a meaningful life story of their own. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. I'd like to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters that are voted on by the board at this meeting. All right, we come to the consent agenda. There are two additional items. Well, there's one item we need to move on the agenda. We need to move the item that's listed under the county manager's report to new business. And we're going to also just add just a general discussion regarding issues related to the COVID-19 response at the end of new business. Are there any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the
Chairman,
consent?
I have one, sir.
Oh, yes, sir.
I just, just so that I understand, the budget amendment for public health funding, that's just money coming from the CDC that's coming into our budget and to be, okay. Is that what that is? Okay.
That is correct, Commissioner Penland. It's a new stimulus appropriation through the CDC passed through to the Department of Public Health. And then there's some really specific eligibility as to how they can spend that money. And then you can see outlined that they do have one specific item related to the creation of the symptom checker and the agreement with NC State University professor, I do believe. Nope. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. All right.
Chairman, on the what you just said you were adding, is that Commissioner Penland's?
Yeah, it's
discussion
to
on the
have just a general discussion of issues related to COVID-19 response.
On the
Last item under new business.
about the May 4th. My mind just went blank. What was it called that we did on
The local
May?
order?
Yeah. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then the county manager says moving.
Yep.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we also, I'm sorry if I didn't say this out loud, I should have. We do need to have a closed session on two matters. We're going to go ahead and do those now. Ms. Hockaday and Mr. Frew, do y'all Want to talk us through those? Okay, Mr. Frew, tell us what the two items are.
We need a motion to go into closed session for two matters, both pursuant to General Statute 143, 318, and 11A3, which is to discuss with an attorney retained or on staff for the attorney to retain the attorney-client privilege. The first item is County of Buncombe versus Joseph Wiseman Jr. et al. That's Buncombe County Superior Court file number 18 CVS 4206. And the second is a matter titled Isaac McLemore Jr. versus Buncombe County. That's the Industrial Commission file number 18-719424. And we just expect to get direction from the board.
Very good. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll be back shortly. We're in closed session.
Yep.
Is there a motion to go back into open session?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The next item on our agenda is regarding an electric vehicle charging stations grant, and Jeremiah Leroy will present this item.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Thanks for the opportunity to get out of the house for a few minutes. We're just here to give you an update on a grant that the Sustainability Office applied for and just got notification that we received. We have applied for a grant from CFAT, which is the Clean Fuel Advanced Technology Center at North Carolina State. And we're awarded funding for 4 additional charging stations at each of the county garages, so 8 total stations. The grant award is for about $17,500. There is a required match of about $4,400 in county funding for FY21, which we have budgeted in the Sustainability Office budget. Total project cost comes to about $21,900. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but it's a pretty straightforward grant and pretty straightforward process for us.
Thank you very much. I have one process question. Do we need to do a budget amendment, or would tonight, or is that necessary?
No, this would be for FY21. It probably won't happen until about September is their
Okay,
typical
so we're just
timeline.
kind of approving it in concept, and then it'll go in the budget.
Correct.
Very good. All right, well, I don't have any questions, but I'll just say thank you for working to help secure the grant. It sounds like a great project. You know, and I think that this is a modest-sized project. I mean, it's an important arena, I think, in terms of meeting our clean energy goals. You know, we're committed to reducing carbon footprint for our organization. You know, we spend a lot of time talking about our buildings and better lighting and solar energy and stuff like that, but a big part of the county's energy use is our vehicle fleet, and of course it's the same thing for the community. So promoting the use of electric vehicles, I think this is a rapidly changing and improving technology, and I think it's going to go from what was kind of a small niche to like very widespread use over a short period of time. And so if we care about clean energy, this is something we should be supporting, and we're going to need the infrastructure to enable it. And of course, charging stations are really fundamental to that. So for all those different reasons, I think it's a great project.
Chairman, just got a quick question for Jeremiah. So, you know, a lot more people are buying electric vehicles, and I think at some point we should see where we have charging stations.
Mhm.
And if these grants are going to be coming available, you know, part of our goal should be, I mean, should these be in, you know, East Asheville, South Asheville, West Asheville? I mean, you know, Lester, where should they be? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
more
I
people
agree.
are, you know, and it's all over the board. I remember when someone in my church bought their electric vehicle before it was cool, as they say, and I know he'd love to know where these spots are to
Sure.
charge that vehicle. So, but anyhow, if we could keep track of this and see how many that we have. I mean, I don't know how many we have. So, I mean, it'd be good for the public to know.
After these 8, we have 2 in the College Station garage, and we have another 4 in the Cox Avenue garage. And we'll have 8 more in addition to that.
And I don't know who has these, but I think of the ones out where the Land of Sky is. There's a couple out there, and I don't know who puts those there or owns them or what.
Yeah, those are.
Good to know where all of them are at some point.
Absolutely, and the electric vehicle community has a number of ways to track. And in fact, most of the time nowadays, the electric vehicles do come with GPS systems that show you where electric vehicle charging stations are. And so there's a pretty comprehensive mapping system that's available to any EV owner today to show them where EV charging stations are located. But you're absolutely right in terms of really having the forethought as to where we put these stations in the future and where they're going to mean the most in terms of the impact that they can have for the community as they continue to adopt additional, electric vehicles.
Thanks.
Sure.
All right, is there a motion?
Second.
All right, there's a motion to approve acceptance of the electric charging station grant and approve the associated 25% county match. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, Jeremiah. The next item on the agenda, which was under the county manager's report, we're going to move down, but are there any other items under the county manager's report, Ms. Pender, that we need to cover?
No, sir.
Very good. So, and there are no old business items, so we'll just go ahead and take up that item, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, and Sharon Burke will help us out with this item.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, there we go. So I'm here before you tonight to ask that you consider adopting the Family First coronavirus policy that includes positions that are excluded from this policy, as well as compliance with the law in regards to the compensation of this benefit. And next slide, Max. So just as an overview of what I've presented in the past, is the Family First Corona Act policy provides definitions for emergency paid leave and emergency paid sick leave. It outlines the eligibility for employees. It defines the benefits that are being paid under the Emergency Family Medical Act, and then provides detail on how to apply for the benefits. And so what I'm asking is that you consider the Family First Corona policy, which includes those positions that are excluded, and you consider the compliance with the law on the rate of those on the compensation. And I can go over what the rate of those, the compensation is if you'd like. Yes, okay, terrific. So under the emergency paid sick leave, what I am proposing is, in this policy, is that every employee is eligible for the emergency paid sick leave. And what that is would allow any employee, if they become COVID positive or if they are asked to quarantine because they've come in contact with anybody, that they would be allowed 80 hours of paid sick leave. And that is what the actual act is recommending. The Act also provides a maximum for that benefit, and what that maximum is $511 per day, or $5,101 or $10, I'm sorry, for the 10-day period. The second piece on the emergency paid sick leave is if the employee wants to care for anybody who is not their parent, child, or spouse. So let's say I want to take care of my grandparents or a very close neighbor. This policy would allow that employee to do that as well. However, they would only receive 2/3 of their salary. And the maximum benefit for that one is $200 per day, or a $2,000 max total for a 10-day period. Now, the emergency family medical leave is a little bit different, and that's where those positions that would be excluded. And those positions are anybody who is a first responder or anybody who is part of the healthcare system or the healthcare program. And so in the policy, we actually describe very clearly on what positions would be excluded, such as the corrections officers, everybody from HHS. So that would be the public in the health side of HHS, the social side of HHS. It would be all department administrators, It would be the finance department, it would be the legal department, and it's, the law states that anybody who is required to continue the operation of the county would be excluded. So tax department, register of deeds would also be included in that. And it also gives us some ability to, if a department becomes critical to the ability for us to operate the county, we could then enact those positions to be excluded as well. So, and the payment for those positions, how that works, and again, that is the Emergency Family Medical Act is the child care portion of this. And so what it does, it would require the employees to take 10 days of unpaid leave, or if they have not used the emergency paid sick leave, those 80 hours, they could use that to apply towards that waiting period. After that waiting period, the 2-week waiting period, they then would be paid their salary at 2/3 of their rate of pay. And again, they are also talking about a maximum, which is $200 per day or $10,000 total. So it would limit some liability for the county as well. Questions that I can answer for you?
So, I know we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting. So, do we have a sense for how many employees would likely be, participating under
Absolutely.
this?
So when I did the research, what I found was 617 employees have school-age children. And of those 617, initially, before Department of Labor came out with some additional guidance, we had about 328 positions that were exempt. But since we've got that guidance, we now have 488 positions that are exempt based on the definitions that we have right now.
Okay, so there's 617,
Parents with school-age children.
but in terms of the people who are excluded, like let's say they're in the tax department, if you're in the tax department, even if you have school kids, are they required to work, or if they have kids, are they
They would be required to
allowed
work.
to take care of the kids, or?
They would be required to work
So,
because
so if you're in
it's-
those critical departments, then everyone has to figure it out and keep working.
Correct, and that's
Okay.
where we'll be, if this policy is enacted, I would go out or have conversations with the department directors and let them know about the YMCA, childcare centers and
There's
stuff
options,
that's
right.
available to them.
So of the 617, let's stay, just kind of staying with the employees who have school-age kids, so a lot of those people, or some percentage of those people work for tax and legal in some of those departments. So again, do we have a sense for just how many people would sort of be actively using this compared to those
So
who are
we
going to
have
continue to
about-
have to do their work because they're in one of those key departments?
Right now, we have about 20 applications that are in, that are already using, the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act. And so, depending on, if we require people to come back to work and how that looks, that could, versus working at home, that could, increase that number of people who want to do that versus right now they're being paid 100% to work from home. They've got their kids there, so they have no need for childcare. So they have no need for this act right yet. But if we end up having to say, you need to come back and do your job in your office, it could increase it.
So Bernie, I think your question was, there's 617 total that have school-age kids, and we're asking to exempt 488. So that leaves 129 that could possibly then take this.
129 is sort of the theoretical maximum. Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. All right, commissioners, other questions?
Just to double back, you said the rate of pay would be 2/3?
Correct.
Is that's the recommendation at this point?
Correct. And that's the regulation that comes in the law. So
Okay.
anything that we do that's greater than that would just be at the generosity of the county.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions, commissioners? We prepared to go ahead and, does anyone want to make a motion?
I move that we adopt it.
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up is an update on residential waste and recycling collections contract, and Dane Peterson will lead us off on this item.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hope everybody's doing well.
Sir.
It's been a little while. That's the joke, is it's Blur's Day, Cinco de Mayo. So here this evening to talk about an update on the collections contract. And with us this evening with Waste Pro is Chip Jingles, Regional Vice President of Waste Pro. Y'all have met. Carlos Figuera, who is the Asheville Division Manager with Waste Pro, and Jennifer Herring, who is the Governmental Services Director. And while I've got the opportunity, I'd like to give a shout out to our Buncombe County Solid Waste team. This COVID situation has brought challenges to all of us, and our volumes and demand have certainly gone through the roof. And very thankful and appreciative of our team's efforts stepping up, meeting those challenges head on. And if we were able to take a survey, I would bet you that Buncombe County has the cleanest garages and basements of anywhere in the country. I really believe that. Right, Chip? Yeah. So, and also like to acknowledge Waste Pro on the front end of this update. It was no small accomplishment to perform a cart delivery project of this size, massive cart delivery project, and in the same time frame continue collection services and work through the challenges of a pandemic. So the services are not just essential, they're critically essential to helping safeguard the general public and the environment. So thank you. And so that is the topic of conversation this evening. And a little background. Time flies when you're having fun. So here we are in the 5th month of the new contract. So Buncombe County and Waste Pro entered into a franchise collections agreement for the unincorporated areas of Buncombe County. The base term of this contract is 5 years, and there is two-year extension options at the end of the base term. And as you know, the new program is roll cart based collection. This was a significant transformation in the application of services here in the county, and this program is weekly trash and every other week recycling collection in the county. And at this point, I'm going to ask Chip to come up and talk about some programmatic items.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And I second what Dane says. Got to be some clean garages and basements here in Buncombe County. But I also like that sentiment to give our team a shout out. I really appreciate the local Waste Pro team. It's quite a few challenges right now with the pandemic, and everyone continues to show up for work and help get the trash and recycle collected. So I'm very appreciative of that. So here we have our current subscriber count. A little over 31,000 Buncombe County residents have subscribed to the subscription program, 31,688 2 weeks ago, to be exact. There was an increase of over 3,667 subscribers. 2 weeks ago, we had delivered over 62,601 carts. We have seen a significant increase in the recycled material. Kudos for the county program. It's definitely working. The recycled material has definitely had a huge increase. So if I were to try to describe it to you so you'd understand, prior to the cart rollout program, we used to run 5 routes for recycle every week, okay? So we have essentially divided the services in half now, and we have an A and a B week, and so half of the residents are serviced 1 week, half of the residents are serviced another week. Well, it takes now 5 recycle routes to get that picked up. So we were actually anticipating a reduction. We didn't see that because every resident in Buncombe County is recycling. So kudos to you in that program. The only thing is we haven't seen the trash bill go down either. And I know that part of that is with this pandemic, you know, there are a lot more people at home. And so, you know, we're producing a lot more household garbage at the homes. And lastly, there have been over 459 bear cart deliveries. We do have carts on hand at our local offices. Dane was talking about problems. I mean, I wouldn't say problems. We do have some challenges out there. One challenge we have is theft of carts. A lot of carts are stolen from subscribing customers. That's a challenge for us. And we'll be auditing that and working with the county to bring those cart thieves to justice. Also, too, with additional trash, you know, with the new contract, the trash should be inside of the carts. Our team is still working, picking up a lot of trash that's not in the carts. We go to a lot of places, and, you know if we don't get the extra bags, you know, what they do is they fill the carts up and say we missed it, and we end up coming right back out. So you'll see later in Dane's presentation, we've just been picking it up, and that's helped reduce the number of complaints. But we'll steady working with Dane to make sure that we are servicing subscribing customers. Okay? That's all I have. Thank you very much.
So I got a question, and it just happens to be in my, kind of near where I live, and I thought of it, is when you have a new homeowner, I noticed a new homeowner that had put their trash out, and they put trash out with just, a regular trash can, not Waste Pro trash cans. And so I don't know if that's because they didn't know about the program or just because they're a new homeowner. And so I was wondering how to get the word out to them other than,
That's a challenge for us because, we don't have that homeowner's information.
it's only one I've seen around me.
Yeah. One thing that did happen prior to the cart rollout program is exactly what you said. A new homeowner would come into town, and they would just simply start putting out their trash, and we pick it up and never sign up. So that's why we like the cart program. So we'll work closely with Dane and the county to see how we can make sure everyone is aware of the program. We do have a lot of deliveries still to go. Like I said, we've had thousands of additional people sign up. I mean, prior to this, I think we were around the 27,000 subscriber range. So you can see that the number of subscribers has increased tremendously. And but we're steadily working through that.
Great. Any other questions?
Yes. Chip, I know back 6 months ago we was here and you was going to lose so many customers, How many did you lose plus how many? I know you picked up 3,600. Probably never lost 100, did you? Most of it was talk.
So yeah, I wish, I know hindsight's 20/20, but we definitely gained a lot more customers than we've lost. We made a big to-do over cart selection, but I can tell you 96-gallon carts are in high demand. Very few 48 and 64 gallons are used. We have thousands of them. We might do a sale on those or something. I don't know. Yes.
Well, I know I live out there next to the main office, and the U-Haul and Ryder trucks that we seen riding around with all the garbage cans and all the guys from Arkansas that come in to help you finish this program.
Yes, we had a third party. It was through the cart company, Toter, and we had crews of our own as well. We still have crews of our own. So yeah, we were teased a lot. I mean, there are 10 or more trucks going out every day delivering carts, and raised a lot of questions as to what in the world we were doing. So, yes, sir.
It's a lot of cards.
So that's fantastic to hear, the increase in recycling. I think that was one of the biggest complaints that I heard as we were starting to have these conversations about the contract was you're decreasing recycling. So I'm
Yes.
really excited to hear that most everyone seems to be recycling. I also want to say that Dane is incredibly responsive. Over the past couple of months, probably once a week, it started to decrease. You hear from folks who have a complaint about Waste Pro, send it to Dane. He follows up directly, and it's always nice to hear back from that person residing in Buncombe County to say thank you for the follow-up, so I do appreciate that. And I also want to give a little kudos to Waste Pro that in my own neighborhood, prior to the new trucks, probably every Friday when it was recycling day, one of my neighbors was showing up on my front porch complaining about the number of glass bottles that were broken and what was I going to do about it. With the new trucks, I have not seen any broken glass. So the work that you all put into the trucks and being very cognizant and conscious of the work that you're doing has not gone unnoticed. So thank you so much, Mr. Jingles.
Well, thank you.
And Chip, something else I guess need to give a plot out is I got to meet one of the original owners of Waste Pro,
Yes,
Fred.
sir. Yes, sir.
What a unique guy. He come by and just happened to see him at a restaurant there. And he said, how's it going? And I said, well, if you see my emails of the people complaining. And he said, give them to me. And that was a mistake. And I just forwarded them to him. Out of the 10 that I give him, just see what happened. 9 of the people said he come to their door and knocked on it and asked them what is the matter, what can he do. And I mean that's something for I guess he's a CEO or a part owner or original owner or something, but everybody needs to know that he told me any time he would go and answer any complaint. And I guess you can tell a little bit more about him.
Yes, Fred is a senior vice president with our company. He worked with our owner and founder from the beginning, and he was with us throughout the duration of the rollout. And he was an intricate part. He played a big part. He was out delivering bear carts and picking up trash, and along with everyone else at our team too. I really can't thank the team, local team enough. They've done a great job, and look, I got to find some unique ways to help celebrate what they've accomplished so far. Okay.
All
Thank
right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for this this really
I think
positive.
Dane
update.
has more.
Okay, sure.
I've got a couple more if y'all can stand and look at me for a
Sure,
few more
sure thing.
minutes. So, wanted to present you guys with the board with some information on some numbers of complaints, so you have that information. Obviously, our solid waste department tracks and monitors those complaints, and from the start of the effective date of the new contract through April 30th, solid waste department has logged and tracked 249 complaints. And to provide some context on frequency and how many services that has taken place, that's about 768,000 service events since January 1st. And the majority of these complaints have been missed and trash recycle pickup. And as Waste Pro has gotten carts delivered and working to adjust routing, call volume has dropped substantially for April, as you can see with the count, individual counts per month. So the timeline, you're very familiar with, but talking back through that, what started delaying, or what did delay the cart delivery process takeoff was negotiations with Waste Pro on the Bear Cart program, as well as the Senior Citizen Low-Income Discount Program. So got off the ground a little bit later than anticipated, but that was, cart delivery started in January, as well as the Senior Discount Program. In February, cart delivery continued, and primarily cart delivery phase was complete in March, and April was the first full month of service with the new carts in place. So the elderly low discount program we just mentioned, Buncombe County Waste Pro negotiated a total of 700 allowances for this program, and in return, Buncombe County allows Waste Pro to continue to be eligible for the rebate program. And so far, we have had 10 subscribers signed up and participating for the discount program. And just as a reminder for the program we're talking about, the eligible subscribers are elderly, low income, and difficult driveway. So signing up for this program, and if they meet those metrics, then they are not charged a premium service, basically, to have that backdoor type service.
Dane, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you surprised by the limited kind of uptake in that program?
Didn't really know what to expect. I would have thought numbers would have been a little more. But I think a lot of the early on conversations were, we're not going to be able to manage this cart. And we obviously were conscious of that. So thinking through those programs for senior citizens and folks that may have trouble mobility-wise moving carts to the collection point, I think it's a good program. I just think that, as we'll talk about in a minute, we're going to go back out with a second round of advertising, targeted, and see what we can come back with. So, in talking about the advertisements to this point, PR has been a big help for us on that. County website, solid waste pages, social media. Buncombe County did a press release, WLOS, Citizen Times, and for the specific paper application locations, Buncombe County landfill, transfer station. Waste Pro has applications at the Arden location, libraries, Register of Deeds, and Health and Human Services. So as we talked about, that's the next steps with this program, is to enlist community engagement to help us with more targeted advertising of this program. And now that carts have been out for a month, maybe that will trigger some more interest. And so develop flyers, brochures, and a second round of press. So those were the primary topics of conversation. Can we try to help answer any questions?
I just got a comment from personal experience. I think once people get used to, one cart goes out this week, 2 carts go out the next week. Once they get used to what their weeks are, you may even have some of your complaints for they didn't pick my trash up, go down. But I can say that the complaints that I've gotten have dropped dramatically. Good. And so I appreciate it.
All right. Well, gentlemen and other members of the Waste Pro team who are here, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. This is a lot of positive news, and so we appreciate it. We appreciate everyone's really hard work, and as folks have said, kind of prompt follow-up on different questions and concerns folks have, both from the company and from our staff. We appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. Next up is the county strategic plan. And Rachel Nygaard is going to help us out with this one.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Evening.
I'm Rachel Nygaard, your Strategic Partnerships Director, and I was here with you 2 weeks ago on April 21st talking about the Buncombe County Strategic Plan. So my job tonight is to introduce the agenda item and tee you up for your discussion of and consideration of approval of the Buncombe County Strategic Plan 2020 through 2025. When I was here on April 21st, we talked about the process, reviewed some highlights of the draft plan, and talked about next steps. In terms of the process, we talked about the work that has been underway since last July, including commissioner workshops, employee input, and public participation and input. We talked about the draft plan, which includes mission and vision and values for the organization, as well as 4 community focus areas supported by goals, as well as 3 foundational focus areas. So the community focus areas being education, environment, well-being, and economy, and the foundational focus areas being equity, operational excellence, and resources. And we also talked about next steps. If the board adopts this strategic plan, we will move toward implementation as of July 1. And some of the work that will be a part of that process includes defining Tier 2 goals and metrics, defining business plans, and setting up the structures for the accountability reporting back to the board and back to the members of the public. So with that, I'll step aside so that the board can discuss the strategic plan. This really is your plan. I'm here tonight on behalf of some of the staff that were able to be a part of the process and help provide guidance, but this really is a commissioner-driven plan. Thank you.
I have one comment before we discussion, if that's okay. I was not part of this development, and when this was brought up 2 weeks ago, I probably had that deer in the headlight look like, uh-oh. But I just want to give a shout out to Rachel and Eric Hardy. They took the time over at the EOC to meet with me for about, I think we carved out an hour and a half, but it ended up being 2 hours. They let me ask questions, they let me, and just gave me a better understanding, and I just want to say thank you for that, so.
So, Rachel, I have a question maybe you can help with is, when do you see the, I know a big part of the measuring of this and the measures, you know, the X to Y by when, I know that's going to be, instead of up here as a traditional model for this type of goal setting, it's going to be more down here under the different categories, pretty much. And so when do you see, you know, those things coming back? Are they going to be coming back all at once or over time, or how do you see those goals being developed and those that information coming back to the commissioners?
Sure, I can take a crack at
thanks.
explaining the process as I understand it, and then maybe look to the county manager to talk about how you envision this being presented back to the board and which things come for approvals. I'm not sure. So the business planning process now begins, and we have, like I said, throughout the workshops, as well as employee and public participation sessions, gathered details. So if we think about an example goal, we might have in education a goal in there that's related to career and college readiness, but that's still described in a pretty open way. And so we've, throughout those sessions, gathered some research and gathered some input that gives us a great starting place. So beginning July 1, we come together and we put those definitions. The plan includes some of those definitions and resources that we look to, and we come up with the metrics. So a goal like that might be supported by things like graduation rate, participation in CTE, which is the career and technical education programs at the school. We measure some baseline and look at where we are as a starting place, and then look to the people that have the subject matter expertise. In that case, it might be our community college partners, our industry partners, or K-12 education partners to decide what's a reasonable amount of movement that could be achieved. And that would be occurring within the first, I would say, 6 months of the plan for all of the sections. As far as the feedback loop to the board, I don't know if that's been defined yet.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's fine.
So, so the request is to go ahead and approve the draft plan tonight. Okay. Are there other questions or comments, commissioners?
Just a brief comment of, this is just really a tremendous document, and it's pretty incredible to see it capturing, I'm thinking about all the conversations and dialogues that happened, and just want to really appreciate the work that's gone into this. It's really, really exciting to see it, and it feels like it coheres so many of the policy and issue conversations we've been having over the last couple of years in a really exciting, forward-facing way. So great work to everyone who had touch points on this.
When was the last strategic plan we had, do you know?
We've been operating without a strategic plan for some time. The most recent strategic plan was the Buncombe County Sustainability Plan, which actually had come out of one kind of section and department of the county, and then was adopted by the Board of Commissioners to just go ahead and take that sustainability plan and make it the county's strategic plan. So we'd have to go back and check the notes in our files, but it's been a decade or more since we've done a comprehensive inclusive planning process.
I think I remember one being handed to me when I was about 8 years ago. And I hate to say this, but I mean, what makes me remember it is just the way it was laid out in the, you know, but anyhow, I did read it, so. But it's been, I asked that because it's been a while, and thank y'all for stepping up and doing it. And thanks to all the commissioners who sat around the table and did our best to provide input from the community, and appreciate it. It was done in a very positive way. There was no, I mean, it was well done.
I think this is exciting as we are dealing with some really serious issues in our community right now in regards to COVID-19. As a commissioner looking at this document, it gives me something to be excited about and to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so that as we do get to the other side of COVID-19, we have some really positive things to work toward. So I'm excited to see this move forward.
We've come a long way since, what was it, 2016 when I came on board. And coming from the environment that I came from, I asked our county manager at the time at breakfast. She carried me to breakfast, and I asked her about strategic plan. And I knew something wasn't quite right because she looked at me like a deer in the headlights, you know, rather than say we didn't have one. But what I like about this, we've got a roadmap, we've got the way to really hold ourselves accountable along with everybody else. And it's so easy when you see what we're going through now with the pandemic to get off track. But this will help keep us on track. Not only are we taking care of the day-to-day, you know, operations with the pandemic and everything else we're encountering, but we still will stay, this will keep us focused on the strategic points that we need to move ahead on to correct in our community. So hopefully 5 years from now, you know, we will have good results. So I think this is not only something needed, but the timing is excellent.
So, and if I may, I'd like to read 2 paragraphs from the opening letter in here. And you'll see why I'm doing this here in just a minute. It says, thanks to all who have given us feedback on this plan, made strong suggestions. We hope to see your voice in these pages. Moving forward, we ask you to hold us accountable and make sure we're making decisions in alignment with this plan. And over the long term, we hope that our children and grandchildren will look back on this strategy and see the seeds that help Buncombe County become an even more remarkable place to live. And we would also like to acknowledge the recently deceased Commissioner Mike Fryer. His tireless work was given by the desire to serve the people of Buncombe County. This plan seems to accomplish that goal, and I just want to make sure that give a shout out to Mike and his contribution to this, and for his family. We are grateful, and it did help shape many of the decisions in this plan.
Sure did.
Yeah, you know, I agree with the comment that Commissioner Belcher made earlier about the previous sustainability plans. You know, they were really good documents, and I think a lot of hard work went into them, I think primarily from the staff level. But there was never the kind of public engagement like we have done through this process. So I think this feels very different, you know, just in terms of the collective input from the commission and the community and the staff. So we haven't had something like this since I've been on the commission, for sure. This is the first time we've done. And we've done a lot of good planning, but just in terms of kind of looking at all of the things we want to do kind of at the same time. So I appreciate that. I have just one comment, and I hate to be predictable in some ways. And it's a really detailed thing, and I'm sorry to kind of bring it up, you know, kind of here tonight, but sometimes you just, when you're looking at things, you know, an idea doesn't occur to you until you're sitting here. So the only comment I have, and I hope this might be something we could just agree to by consensus, on the clean energy focus, I think it all is great. The only comment I have is that it references the carbon reduction policy that we adopted as a county commission shortly after I was elected to the county commission. I sponsored that initiative, was a big proponent of it, but the county has, you know, adopted more recent policies. And so the language that concerns me for someone who might not be kind of following everything we're doing, if you just read this one document, it talks about a carbon reduction goal of 2% per year. And I think that the policies we've adopted more recently, frankly, are more up to date and kind of supersede that. So my only comment would be if we could just reduce that reference to the county's carbon emissions by 2% annually language, then that's the only comment I have on it. But just everything else looks good. But
So, Chairman, let me ask you a question, because let me ask you a question, because I had a concern with
and that's I'm sorry, that's on page 11 of 20 of 11, page 11 for folks who want to look at that specific.
So on page 12, I had a similar concern regarding, one of our major goals was preservation of farmland, and we have preservation of farmland and environmentally sensitive tracts of land. I just want to make sure that, and maybe my thought here may help your concern, is if when we go to doing our goal setting and our X to Y by when, maybe we can take into consideration, it's not that I'm not concerned about environmentally sensitive tracts of land. I am, but that evidently grew out of maybe some comments, and the main goal, and I think the chairman will remember that because we were sitting at the same table, that it was farmland preservation. But maybe when we go to our X to Y by when, we might be able to, instead of going back and changing that, we just might be able to just make sure in our goals that we're very sensitive to how we write those, and maybe that would help the chairman's concern too. But I just want to make sure that grew out of preserving farmland in Buncombe County, and because there's a lot of things on French Broad that we should watch after and we should be careful of, and we should probably have goals set for that, because it's environmentally sensitive. But we need to not miss the big goal, which was preserving farmland. Does that make sense?
And
I don't know if we could accomplish your goal by doing that in the goal setting or not when they come back.
so on the chairman's concern, that was just part of the rationale of why we're even thinking about a greenhouse gas, is that we started this a long time ago. So that 2% is not the goal that we're talking about. That's just part of the rationale, not part of the goals that we would set, if that makes sense to you. And then
I know we know that. My concern is just somebody who doesn't, and believe me, there are plenty of people in this community who will look at that and say, I can't believe the county only has a 2% goal. And they just won't know the whole backstory that, that was 2013. We've done way more, over the years since then. So,
and I think we were trying to reference both. So we talked about the 2%, but then you got to 100% renewable was your rationale. But we can look to see how we can tweak that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And
Thank
then
you.
on Commissioner Belcher's comment on the farmland. So the goal started as farmland, but we also want to recognize like steep slopes and other environmentally sensitive parts. So not just farmland, but the entire steep slopes and our riverbeds. And so we try to expand that. But as we go into X to Y, we can make sure we tighten that up in our goals.
And I'm okay with that. It's just that we have a steep slopes policy, but we don't have specific goals and policy for farmland. So I just want to make sure that we don't
Lose the farmland.
we don't lose that, okay? Because it's
I hear you.
I think it's very important, very critical, and just because we have something else that protects, the beautiful mountains, I want to make sure we don't lose sight of the goal. So I guess we're kind of having the same kind of conversation, Chairman, I guess.
Yeah. So we don't have to wordsmith it all night, but if the staff can maybe make a few final tweaks, once we adopt it, to reflect some of the feedback, would that be acceptable, Ms. Bender? Great. All right. Any other comments, or is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of adoption of the draft strategic plan, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Pender and Rachel, and to all the folks throughout the organization who have helped get us to this great milestone. We look forward to
It's a good job, yeah.
keeping this moving ahead.
Next time, can I just say something?
Sure.
Point of personal privilege. Next time we sit around a round table like we did before, since the strategic plan is done, I look forward to the time we're sitting around a round table enjoying dinner together. All right?
Good point, Joe.
Yeah,
No doubt.
Good point.
I look forward to that.
We all do.
Okay. Next item is a resolution authorizing interlocal agreement between the City of Asheville and Buncombe County regarding EOC COVID-19 health assessments.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Here to recommend approval of a second interlocal agreement coming out of COVID-19 with the City of Asheville. This one comes straight out of EOC. The city has agreed for no fee, no cost as part of the plan of if anyone becomes exposed or infected with the virus out of EOC, how would a county employee be able to come back to work within the EOC? So this is to provide COVID-19 evaluations of county employees who are unable to work in EOC. They would be evaluated through the city health department. Again, there's no charge for the service, but the city simply reserves the right to ask FEMA for reimbursement if that is made available. And we're doing this because the statute authorizing interlocal cooperation requires a resolution and a formal contract in writing between the cooperating entities. And so if there's no questions, I just ask for approval effective this date of this interlocal agreement between the City of Asheville and County of Buncombe.
Great. Oops. All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Mr. Frew. All right, we are through all of our new business items except for the one additional item that we added. So on the discussion of the updated county order issued last Thursday. So let me, if it's okay, I'd like to just kind of share a few thoughts about that, and then we can just have kind of have an open discussion about it. So I think the general, the general intent of the order last Thursday was to more, as the state has kind of more fully defined their statewide policy, to take another step to more closely align with that. The main substantive change, well, I'm sorry, let me take one more other step back. The previous revision to the county order, which I believe was April 8th, took pretty substantial steps towards aligning the county policy with the statewide policy. So the first time that the county took steps to do that was back on April 8th. And then last Thursday, some additional changes were made to further align. And the main one, so back, like, for example, on April 8th, the earliest orders the county had, included things like restrictions on elective surgical procedures, things like that, because of course there was high concern at that time about the potential for the hospital capacity to be exceeded, and other things as well. But on April 8th, the amended order addressed a lot of those items and basically said we're going to follow the state policy. One of the areas that the county's policy continued to be more restrictive than the statewide policy was as it relates to community gatherings. I think when we first put our order into place, the statewide policy was actually still at gatherings of 50, which I think many people in our health department rightly pointed out was a lot of, gatherings of 50 people with the forecast that we were looking at that time seemed very risky and highly likely to result in a lot of COVID transmission in the community. So we adopted the policy of basically saying, we need to stay home, stay safe, and we're not doing community gatherings right now. So if you work in an essential job, of course you need to go do your job. But for just community gatherings, social gatherings, things like that, we're not doing that right now. So the county's policy was at 0. So the order last week changed that from 0 to up to 10. We have been, although we've had people who have lost their lives locally to this illness compared to, the other cities across the state, metro areas across the state, as was pointed out earlier, we are, the numbers have been mercifully low compared to other regions of the state and across the country. So And they've stayed that way. You know, they've just stayed, the number of new documented cases has stayed quite low over this whole process. And the community is, you know, to be commended for helping make that happen. So the health department staff recommended we go ahead and align with the state policy on community gatherings. And that's really the most substantive change that occurred last week. There was internal discussion. I mean, I heard it from the question asked from the county's health staff around what about this policy the state has that said, in essence, you know, any business would be defined as essential if they practice social distancing. And, you know, my sense from the staff's discussion of that, they kind of, it was a hard decision because we want to align, but it was also a very open-ended statute, you know, to basically say like every business is essential if the operator of the business themselves believes they're practicing social distancing, you know, and really just kind of self-reporting that they're doing that. And further, you know, there was awareness at that time that the governor had already announced that likely on May 9th, the whole statewide policy would be updated, because the main place this would play out is in retail establishments, right? Because retail establishments in the statewide policy were either defined as essential retail, like grocery stores, but if you weren't an essential retail operation, then you were non-essential and they weren't allowed to operate. Unless they deemed themselves essential, right? So we knew that the governor and the state were about to issue much more specific details on how the whole retail sector could open. So I think the thought process was, that's about to happen, let's let that happen, let's don't jump into that space right now when we know it's going to probably, all the retail businesses across the state will be allowed to open next week, not with some vague kind of, if you're social distancing, but with very clear, detailed policy about what the limits are. So I think that's part of the reason that, you know, that was not changed last week. In terms of, the one other significant policy difference we have in Buncombe County compared to the state of North Carolina, if we simply said we're just going to do exactly what North Carolina is doing, the one other really important change that we'd be making is basically the statewide policy defines hotels as essential businesses. So hotels across the state can book reservations from visitors from anywhere in the country, including other states that have COVID rates far higher than North Carolina, and they can take reservations from people from known hotspots of COVID transmission in our country. Now, they technically, the individuals technically shouldn't be doing that just for tourism. Tourism is not defined as essential. But that's just all kind of relying on some visitor from New York or from Atlanta or from some other part of the state to know all that. They're not going to know that. The clear way to make sure that we are not introducing a lot of COVID into Buncombe County is to be really clear that our hotels are not open at this time for leisure tourism. They're only open for essential business workers, and we require them in our local policy, if someone is booking a reservation, to document what is the essential business that you work for that requires you to come to Buncombe County right now. So we're not just kind of hoping people know what the rule is that the state put out and follow it. We've got a process in place to really make sure the hotels are following that procedure, and to their credit, I think they've done a really good job, and everyone I've talked to has taken it seriously, and they get the importance of this, because when we do reopen, they want to do it. I mean, one of the worst things that could happen for a hotel would be to have folks come in and have some kind of COVID problems in their hotel. It's the last thing in the world those folks want. And I don't think the state policy is a bad policy. It's just that Buncombe County and Asheville are such a big tourist, attraction compared to many other parts of the state. It's just an area where we need to think that through a bit more carefully than your average county. So those are the two places that the local policy is still we have some unique aspects to it in Buncombe County. I was just reading the governor made some further announcements this afternoon that did go into great detail about the reestablishment of all retail operations statewide. That's likely to happen. That sounds like it's going to happen later this week. And there's very specific requirements. They're allowed to operate at up to 50% capacity. So I think the county's intention is to just adopt the state policy on that piece. So there'll be no difference there. And Avril, feel free to correct me if I get any of the facts wrong on this. In terms of the other municipalities, the staff have been in communication with the other municipalities in the county, and every municipality has the right to make their own decisions within their municipality. We don't have the right to tell them what to do, so it's up to them to decide to join this or do something different. Before the county issued the updated policy on Thursday, there was a call with the other municipalities and then some updates, and at that time they all said that they were in, but after we issued it, then Weaverville did decide to, we think that the state policy is fine and we're gonna follow that. And that's their right to make that choice. Over the weekend, I did reach out to the mayor of Weaverville and I said, I received your letter and I respect, that's your jurisdiction's right to do that. And from the media coverage I read, I think the main concern they were having was some of the small shops they have in Weaverville that they thought they could operate safely. And, in large part because we know the statewide policy is going to line all this up soon anyway, I let them know that wasn't a major concern for me because I think we're all going to be on the same page under the state policy. But I said, on the leisure tourism and opening Buncombe County back up to visitors from outside the state, that is a place where we expect to probably do something more careful, a little bit more incremental than the statewide approach. And I think there's a lot of value in everyone in Buncombe County being on the same page on that and having the same message. It could be kind of confusing if people think that some parts of the county are kind of open for leisure tourism, others aren't. So anyway, I sent the mayor an email and asked them to maybe just reconsider the part on leisure tourism. He said, thank you for the email. I'll talk to the town council about it. They did that, and he then followed up and said, we're in agreement with you, and we're gonna amend our order so that we are continuing to be aligned with Buncombe County as it relates to lodging facilities. So anyway, so that's kind of my perspective on it, on kind of how we got to where we are today. So happy to have further discussion about it.
Let me start out by saying thank you for allowing this discussion to happen. This discussion should have happened with this commission 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. Let's only look at the time frame. I do want people to understand a couple of things here. First of all, it's how it was done, the process. And I've been in emergency services for 30 years. I do appreciate a commissioner sending us some stuff about North Carolina General Statute 166, which basically says that counties have to come up with an emergency management plan. They have to set up their emergency management this way. Chapter 21 of our Buncombe County ordinances says that we have emergency management, and at any time natural disasters, the commission and or the chair can declare a state of emergency. I understand all that. I don't, you don't have to educate me on that. The thing is, though, is that, yes, you're right. We were trying to say we were aligning, but did we truly align with the state? Now, this all come about because I was getting complaints. I was getting concern from a citizen who had a letter from the state saying he was essential and basically was threatened, I guess, with law enforcement. So this is where this all came about last Thursday. We should have been discussing this. Any business that could have practiced social distancing, it was right there, could have had the opportunity to petition the state, but they couldn't do it in Buncombe County. The other biggest thing that we have is the fact that the state, in an effort to promote human dignity and limiting suffering for funeral services are permitted to have 50 people as long as they practice social distancing. We've had so many of our funeral services that's been limited to 2 people, 10 people, and the state is saying, no, if you can practice social distance, and you're going to be able to practice social distance more in a church and in a funeral home because those types of businesses are places of assembly that are more defined in the fire code. So the question that we had, it was the process that we took to get to this point. Mr. Chairman, you have every opportunity to declare a state of emergency under the state of North Carolina General Statute and under Chapter 21. But the commission should have debated. Folks, 28 years I coached sports, and I can take a defeat. I can lose 4-3, I can lose 5-2 or 6-1. What I can't take is the citizens that I serve. The citizens I serve didn't get to hear me say anything else about these orders, knowing that businesses are putting boards on their windows. They are not coming back. Phase 1 is supposed to start at 5 o'clock May 8th. That's what the governor, I read it from the governor. But Phase 1 also allows local governments to continue putting more restrictions on the Phase 1. So this Buncombe County could very easily say, yes, the governor's going to allow retail, but we're going to decide that we're going to not do this type of retail. What I'm just asking from this commission is that we be included. We be included. If you're going to put we, the commission, adopt, then let's have we, the commission, debate. And let's go from there. Folks, we have people who think we should, and I don't like the word reopening because everybody thinks it's going back to the way it used to be. I think we're going to be able to say we are going to allow people to return to work with restrictions, with restrictions. And if that business owner decides that that model is not acceptable, his overhead is too great, in this country, it should be the business owner that decides that, not us. So, and I'll let someone else say stuff.
Okay. Well, I've just, there's a process to put things on the agenda. I think everyone knows what they are, and they're available for any county commission agenda. So any person on this commission could have requested to put things on the agenda. We've got clear policies for that. So, in terms of the meeting tonight, I'm glad to have the discussion too. These are probably the toughest issues we're ever going to face while we're doing this, right? As a country and a community. We're all going to look back in this when it's all over and kind of discuss, who got it right, because who did it best, and we don't know how that whole story is going to turn out. But I think that the policies we have had by acting early and acting in a strong way. I mean, this illness is not affecting every community across the country equally, and we don't fully understand why. So we can't take credit for everything, but I do believe the fact that we took action early, and we were, and honestly, Commissioner, we did originally plan to have the very first order on a county commission agenda to have this kind of discussion there and take that action then. But the information I was reading at that time showing the exponential growth of this illness and the forecast for how many people were going to get sick and how many people were going to die. The week before that, and I'm talking to our staff saying, are y'all seeing this? Are y'all seeing the same data? And they're like, yeah, we are. And, when we decided, we need to move now. We can't wait till the next commission meeting. And honestly, I think that helped. I really do. I think that weekend, a lot of different churches and other organizations, there were a lot of events planned in Asheville, in Buncombe County that weekend, and a lot of organizations said, the county's got an emergency order in place, and they're asking everyone to, if it's not an essential function, to stay home. I honestly think that taking that action early has really made a big difference to keeping the spread low. Because if it had kept spreading a lot, then once you get big numbers, it's hard to get them back down. But if you can keep them low, you're in so much of a better spot. So I think the policy has served us well. I've been happy to kind of lay out tonight the areas where I personally do think it makes sense to potentially have a distinct policy from what the state's doing. I think our health staff were happy to say that, in general, we think the state's got a good strategy here, and we want to align with it. We're not looking to, do everything different just because we could. It's really the tourism piece that I think, I personally think, and I think our health staff agree that that's a place we should look at that. But on the other issues, I think the trajectories were going to be aligned. So that's my thoughts.
we're all bringing in our personal beliefs and biases on this situation. And I feel like we have been very fortunate to have Dr. Mullendor and Mr. Tove, who are incredible experts, and also relying on other health and medical professionals to help guide these decisions so that as commissioners, we are not having to make those decisions without medical experts driving those. I mean, we could all listen to every constituent who, again, is going to fall on both sides. And I'm very pleased that we are continuing to listen to medical experts who are basing their decisions on data and science.
I totally agree. I mean, there, Commissioner Amanda Edwards. I think I just got so much here, I don't know where to start. I think what upset the most about is that 10:45 got an email that was going to meet at 2:30. And only certain commissioners got it. And was never brought up that we was ever going to discuss it. Got an email May 3rd, 10:14. Brownie Newman sends out about Esther Mamhauer, our mayor, and it was addressed to Brownie Newman, Jasmine, Al, and Amanda. And then inside of it, it says you can let your other commissioners know. That's three of us.
I think she said, please forward it to the other commissioners, is what she
The
said.
original email, right here, May 3rd, 10:14, was addressed to you four and Avril. That's all. And inside of it, it said, you can let the other three commissioners know.
And I did. I
Oh,
forwarded it
boy,
to you
I am
as
so
soon-
glad.
Well, I mean, she's not here to
I
defend.
know she's got her email. I know she does. I think that's what we are saying, is we're 7 commissioners. I'm vice chair, you're chair. You have 1 vote, I have 1 vote. They all have 1 vote. Let's let everyone know what's going on at the same time. Every time. I mean, this is a bad thing that's going on. And when can we discuss of what we're going to do with the state when we're going online? You know, they're looking at it. I haven't got to see what Governor done today. But are we going to wait 2 weeks and say, okay, we're going to line ourselves with the governor? But A, B, C, D, we're not going to do. I mean, I've talked to these pastors at these churches. They're meeting tomorrow. I mean, myself and Commissioner Whiteside spoke earlier. At his church, a capacity of 600 people, but there's only 150 there. I think and I think our community, and I think our churches and funeral homes and everything are a lot smarter than we are at knowing how they can practice safe distancing in their place. And I just want the people to know that we need to get this county back going with restrictions. We can't open it up, like Commissioner Penland said. We can just not say we're opening. We're opening with restrictions. But let's use some common sense and let these people tell us how we can do it instead of one person doing it.
Well, so it is this Saturday. I think I've said that several times, but just to be clear, the state's policy looks like it'll go into effect Saturday, and our intention is to do the same thing. So it's not waiting weeks and weeks. I think that's what our health staff has said. It's what I've communicated I'm supportive of.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you're saying this Saturday, we're gonna fall to the state, phase 1 of the reopening, even though Executive 121 is totally different. So if you're saying we're gonna fall to the state's phase 1 reopening, what more restrictions are we gonna put in there? Because if phase 1, if we say, here's the state's phase 1, we're gonna allow this, And then we say we're falling to it. Are we falling to Executive Order 121 as well?
Ms. Bender, do you have a comment?
So,
Sure.
just briefly,
Yeah.
what we've been doing with the governor's orders have been going to our incident command, which is usually our public health staff. They've been reading it over and giving us guidance and input. Once we get that, I've been sending it to the chair and to the board. So I would like to ask that public health still look at the governor's orders and still give us some guidance versus saying here tonight, it'd be a decision to just go 100%. I don't yet know what the governor says. They haven't given me that guidance. So my ask of the board tonight, the debate, but please give us guidance that public health staff can still look at it and let's come back with some guidance to you guys.
Our public health staff has to be involved. They have to be involved. But the thing is, though, is that needs to come to the commission so we can look at it, and we need to look at it before 2.5, 3 hours before we send it out to the public. So if we do have questions. But I would like to ask, and if we can't act upon it, but I would like to make a motion that we follow the state's Executive Order 121 as it pertains to funerals, that we permit 50 people as long as social distancing can be, so as long as social distancing requirements can be met, that we at least fall back to that on the governor, or on the governor's executive order. And I just really would like to see about how maybe a private campground could have a camper that's self-contained. Bathhouses are closed, pools are closed, so please look at stuff like that, because these are the folks that I represent who made phone calls to me last week. And I'm like, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I do agree with what you're saying, but we didn't debate this, and that's when it went out on Thursday. So now they're looking at me like, well, you know, what are you even up there for if you're not going to get a chance to talk? I can take losing. That's not it. I cannot take stuff that goes behind something and not include all of us. I respect each and every one of you, and that's when I sent my email last week to you. I said, with all the ounce of respect I have in my body, but I just want to make sure that this commission is involved in what we sign for the citizens of this county.
So go ahead, Jasmine.
Well, there's a motion, so I sort of had a discussion point.
Okay, right. There is a motion.
There's a motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
Was it a second?
So I'm going to second the motion, but I want to make a friendly amendment back to you in a minute. Go ahead, Commissioner.
If you'd like to proceed with the
Why don't you
friendly
go ahead and
amendment.
say what that is?
So I think, and Commissioner Penland, you tell me if I want to try to, can you hear me?
One point of clarification, if
Yes,
I
sir.
might. The new executive order, and this is for Commissioner Penland's motion, is Executive Order number 138, 138. It would be effective 5 p.m. on Friday. To your point, Commissioner, it does, and I haven't, it's 14 pages long, and just doing a word search, it appears that it does have the same language for 50 people at a funeral that 121 did.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that you knew the correct time of implementation and the
So,
correct
okay, so
order.
5 p.m. on Friday, but the question is, I just want to make sure that our staff doesn't put more restriction. If that's what the governor is saying on that order, that's.
I'm sorry, sir. I was just trying to comment on when it's effective and your reference to Executive Order 121.
But 121 is effective now, and it does have 50, so I think he was wanting to pull that.
Yes, and on Friday, it'll be 138 with the same 50-person funeral language.
Did the motion have other restrictions, or are you still discussing?
I'm getting ready to make a friendly amendment to him to maybe correct that.
Well, maybe, just to clarify though, the motion is only on the issue of funerals. It's not regarding anything else. I mean, you made a comment about not wanting to see any further restrictions at the local level than the state level, but I guess I'm not clear. Is that part of the motion, or is it just about this issue of how many people can attend a funeral?
Well, the thing is, like campgrounds, I mean, you know, self-contained campers, where they come here and they have their own bathrooms in their camper, and they know by making the reservation, you need to bring your food with you. And basically what they're going to do is sit around a campfire to get away from staring at four walls. Now, those are things that I want, we could discuss. I can amend my motion to say include campgrounds.
Could you just restate your motion, please?
I'll make a motion that we, Buncombe County follows Executive Order 121 to allow 50 people to gather for funerals as long as social distancing requirements are in place, and to allow our private campgrounds to start opening with self-contained campers only. And when self-contained campers mean they have their own bathrooms in there, they have their own kitchens, and they have to, during the reservation process, know that visiting our grocery stores will be out. They'll need to bring their own food.
Okay, thank you. Did you second that motion?
I did.
Okay, further discussion.
Did you want to, do you still have a friendly amendment?
I do.
Okay.
So from hearing the discussion, I want to make sure that I think that what you're trying to do and that your frustration is with the order that was on the, what was the day of the last one?
April 30th.
We did April 30th? Was that when we did it? Okay. Was that did not align with the state with the exception of hotels. Is that correct?
Yeah, 10 people.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
No, I'm talking about the entire order, which includes the section that has where if a business can practice social distancing and sanitation requirements, then it is deemed essential. What section is that?
That's section 2.C.1, but that section is going to be come Friday at 5 o'clock, according to the governor. Those retail businesses.
Forget about Friday for just a minute, okay? Because we don't know what's going to be on there Friday. We got an idea, right? But if the past one that did not, that we didn't know about, we didn't get to write all the information, which was frustrating. If we're aligning with the state, if the commission is aligning with the state except for hotels, would that not achieve the goal that you're looking for?
Well, maybe that's what we need to do then. Maybe I need to bring that motion out. What do I do, just bring that motion back?
Why don't you rescind, can you just rescind this
rescind it.
motion?
Can I rescind my motion?
What, okay. I think
He
we're
can
saying
rescind his
yes.
motion, okay. Okay,
All right.
now, for discussion, would you care to restate your motion to follow the guidelines of the state and associated with that date?
I will restate my motion. I'll make a motion that the Buncombe County will follow the guidelines set forth by the state of North Carolina, the governor of this great state, that we'll follow his orders, executive orders, moving forward, with the exception of understanding the hotel and the tourism part of our area.
With the exception of restrictions on those. And so, but for point of order, that would reference the order made on April 30th, that your motion is that the order made on April 30th. I'm trying to help you because I know you're a little emotional right now, okay? So that the order made on April 30th, that the county would align with the state with the exception of the restrictions imposed on the hotel industry. Is that accurate?
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
A few things. One, I'm very glad we're having this discussion.
Yeah,
We
it's a
need
good
to be
discussion.
talking every meeting, right? That's our job, and the community needs to hear from all of us. And I think I have never had an iota of doubt about the passion and commitment everyone on this commission has to both saving lives and making sure that we safely reopen.
Absolutely.
So that is a prelude. Second piece is process is really hard in an emergency situation. I think we've all felt that at different times, wished we'd been part of decision-making at certain times, or maybe disagreed with some of the decision-making at certain times. But on the whole, I think the fact that our decision-making has been led by a public health lens and that we've coupled that with really robust efforts to provide relief and assistance to people has really been critical. From a process perspective, everything that's happened adheres both with state law and the local ordinance regarding states of emergency. And I think that's important to recognize that both of those, obviously state law governs, but the local ordinance reinforces that the chair of a board of commissions is empowered to make these decisions, and there may be times when the chair needs to act with staff more quickly than we can reasonably convene this body in any way. So everything that's happened has adhered to those, and that's just really important, I think, for our community to know and for our for us to remember. So that's from a process perspective, and I think it will continue to be the case that we need to keep that will keep happening. The chair and staff will need to keep working in a rapid pace, and commissioners should be looped in at every pivot point, every inflection point, and that needs to continue happening, I think, to make sure we're as nimble as possible.
Sure.
On the specific motion that's on the floor, you know, at 5 p.m., Governor Cooper began an address to basically introduce the first stages of phase 1, and I believe has issued an executive order accompanying that. I don't think anyone in this room has had an opportunity to read that, much less digest it, much less sort of interpret it through the lens of how it applies to Buncombe County. So what I think Ms. Pinder's guidance to us to let public health staff digest that and come back with recommendations about the ways in which we would adhere to it, and it sounds like the great intention is that we adhere in every way possible. But also we have to keep taking this very localized lens. We are incredibly lucky, for instance, that a local nursing home has not had an outbreak. Dr. Mullendore herself said part of this has got to be luck. You know, as much preventive efforts has happened, as much vigilance, there's still a piece of this that's luck. And, you know, I'm a minister by training, and to me, one of the most heartbreaking parts of all of this has been the stories. They've been local, they've been from all over the country and world about what happens when someone dies, that they're dying without family, and then that families are having to mourn without each other. I can think of few things more heartbreaking than that. I also know that funerals have been shown to be super spreader events, for instance. There's a horrible case out of Georgia, but a few hours from here, about a tremendous outbreak that happened from a funeral. So it's very hard to hold the public health side of you with the heart, with the crisis that so many people are in, but I just think we have to keep charting our course on the basis of what public health experts are determining is best for Buncombe County specifically. Governor Cooper is writing orders that apply to 100 counties, some of which have been, you know, have exponentially more cases than us, some of which have almost no cases at all. And I hope we will, at every meeting, keep having discussions, hearing ideas, figuring this out. But I would not support the motion as proposed because no one has had an opportunity yet to read the new executive order or think about its local implications.
Yep.
So those are my remarks at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would like to add, you know, the general sentiment of what the motion expresses. I mean, you know, I started off this, you know, kind of sharing my perspective that's exactly what I think we should be doing, but it is all contingent on getting more data over time it's all contingent upon us having good information that this disease is remaining in check. If we do see outbreaks here, or just if the levels just begin rising here, you know, to a much greater extent than what has happened so far, we may very well have to adopt stronger policies than the state in other regards. So I do want us to follow the state's policy in general, except as it relates to tourism, but that's all predicated on making sure we can do so in a way that really protects the safety of this community. I'm optimistic that will be the case. I am. I think just because the community's done such a great job so far, and I think the phased plan that the state has outlined it makes a lot of sense. But we just can't know the future, and because we can't know the future with that kind of certainty, I would never agree to tie our hands about the steps we might have to take to protect public safety here. you know, it is my strong hope that as we reopen different sectors, we don't have to go back and close something back down again, because I think that'd be pretty demoralizing. But at the end of the day, public safety and public health has got to be the highest priority. And so for that reason, I couldn't vote to support a motion that would tie our hands in the way I think this would. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm not following you real good, because I thought you said we are so close to the state, except for the hotel and our tourism, but you can't support it.
It is my, well, do you want me to answer the question?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. It is my general intention as the chairman of the commission and one of the commissioners, that the general direction is that we align with the state plan, probably with a tourism exception, contingent upon the data showing that the county's rates of COVID transmission remain manageable, right? So if the state's doing great, but some numbers really get bad here, that is a scenario where we would have to do something. We would potentially have to at least be able to consider doing something different. So the general intent is aligned with the state, except with tourism, but we have to keep our options open in the future.
So what you're saying is that puts us 2 weeks behind the state of what they're doing.
No, I think we can
You said you want to see what happens.
No, I think
you
we
didn't
can.
say that.
I think again, let's hear what our staff have to say, but
Yeah.
based on everything I know tonight, which is not everything. It's just
Me either.
Then I'm hopeful that we can align with the state's policy that sounds like it's going to start on Friday. So
How will we know?
All right.
well, tomorrow, our staff are, as we're sitting here talking about all this, they're reading this stuff, and they're going to come out with recommendations tomorrow to kind of, hopefully say, yeah, it's a good plan, we're for it. But we haven't heard them yet, so I do want to hear them, but that's my expectation, unless there's something that's just really surprising in this policy.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Have you ever been on a incident command system where you're on the side of an interstate of a motor vehicle accident, you're on a big brush fire, and you'll see one guy or gal step back, and they see the overall picture. They look at the overall picture because they have to make sure that they don't miss something that's coming that has nothing to do with the actual incident itself. Last week, during the media briefing, the doctor at Mission Hospital said that they are encouraging people to come to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Because so I don't know if we could see data that says how many of our citizens are sitting in their homes suffering from chest pain, suffering from abdominal pain, suffering from headaches because they're afraid to go. How many of our citizens don't know where their next paycheck is and they've just decided that it's not worth you. So those are things we have to look at, and those are things that I believe are happening in this county. Yes, COVID-19 is a virus that we know nothing about. It is very contagious. And when we say soft openings, soft this, it's just to try it, and let's leave it up to the citizens of our county to be responsible to make their own decision to say, yes, I'm going to go to the hospital. Yes, I'm going to go into that bookstore. Yes, I'm going to do this, or no, I'm not going to do it. That is the freedom that we have as U.S. citizens, that we can make the choice. COVID-19 it's out there, and it's something that we've got to, and it affects people differently. But we also got to step back and say, how is this affecting our business owners? How is this affecting people that right now that still haven't received one bit of money, and they don't even know if they're going to be able to pay their credit card, or they're going to have to default on this? And I would like to know that stuff too.
Well, I gave a quote to Mission Hospital supporting their encouragement for people to go get elective medical procedures. And that's part of why we changed our policy on that, 3 weeks ago. So we're supportive of that, and we've clearly communicated that. The hospitals are available for that kind of business, but just because that's open doesn't mean everything under the sun needs to be resumed. I'm going to ask commissioners who haven't spoken on this yet if they have any questions or comments.
Oh,
Mr. Whitesides, yeah.
I'm not asleep over here. I'll wake up. You know, as we talk about it and discuss it, I think probably for me, I have to go back to my mom and dad and think about my Christian upbringing. Because the bottom line here is deaths. You know, we have lost 4 people, which is not many. We're fortunate, but it's still 4 families, 4 dads, moms, all who are affected. I don't want to see us, and we do too much of this in America, folks. We can't be concerned all the time about the almighty dollar. And my concern here is this. If we open up and don't do the right things, who's going to be held accountable if the death rate starts going up? People are looking at commissioners. That's why we were elected, to make the tough decisions. But sometimes, you know, we can't let, I know we think about the stock market, which doesn't affect but a few people in the country, let's face it, because most people don't have anything in it anyway. But we've got to think about the people's lives and do what's right. And that's where I'm coming from. And sure, in a pandemic or anything, or it's like when I was on ship during the Vietnam conflict. We can't wait always. You know, we've got to make decisions when they need to be made. But I think here we're headed in the right direction. You know, let's look at what the governor is talking about, listen to people in the health, you know, and if we need to have a meeting to discuss this, a call meeting Thursday morning before Friday, let's do it and go over it. You know, I have no problems with that, that we discuss it. But let's think about the people's lives, folks. You know, I mean, we can't just look at that like it's, you know, like they're collateral damage. We can't. And that's where I have a problem with.
So I'm going to try to keep us on track. The motion is regarding the April 30th order. I want to reference the first order that was done. We're all together on that. I agree with the chairman's comments. I mean, I agree with
Well,
you.
the first order, I mean, just to be clear, was developed.
It's over.
That's the one apparently everyone likes, but it was developed in the exact same way that these other ones that are being criticized have happened, which is, you know, I advocated for us taking earlier action ahead of the county commission meeting. The staff were in agreement. They wrote up a great policy, and that's how that happened. But apparently that was the good one. It was good when we did it that time, but it was bad when we've done it the other times.
What I was going to say, Chairman, is that I knew about that. I knew about, you know, what we were doing, and knew more about that than the last one. So this is about the April 30th announcement, and that we were under the impression that that was going to align with the state, except with the exception of hotels. Now I'm gonna. Are you up for a friendly amendment since we're having so much fun?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm gonna ask the clerk to, can you restate that motion for us? Can you read the motion, the original motion? Give you plenty of time to find it.
The motion was to follow the guidelines of the state of North Carolina with the exception of restrictions with the hotel industry. And that would be, I think it was 121.
It was the April 30th, is that correct? Okay.
I don't have the date, but I can put the date there.
Well, to be clear, I mean, my understanding of the motion is that it would basically direct the county to follow the state's policy in all regards in the future
No,
on the COVID policy except tourism.
no.
Are you just amending one particular order, or what if it gets changed in the future?
I think the motion specifically referred to the April 30th order, which
Yeah.
is 121.
Yes.
The thing that's happened is that while we've been meeting, a new order, which is 138, has been issued, which no one has had a chance to
Which
read.
is o-
So that's fine,
Which is
but I think
cool.
from a point of clarification,
You're right.
and I think that's what you're drilling down to, Joe, is
am.
the
I
motion
am.
refers
Yes.
to an order that's now superseded by a new order.
Yes.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to understand, because my sense of the motion was that, hey, the state's gonna have a plan in the future, it'll change over time. Let's follow that plan, except as it relates to tourism. Maybe we do something different there. Is that a fair description of the?
If we're gonna align, say we're gonna align with the state, then let's do everything we can to align with the state. With the exception of things that we know could cause, that's, we used words align, and let's face it, we didn't align, we just allowed mass gatherings of 10 now, but we didn't align, other than just a few things. Aligning with the state, here's what happened. We put our order out, as well did a lot of other counties, a lot of the cities put their order out, basically 3 days prior to the governor's. And then a lot of the cities and counties in the state fell back to the governor. Now, I know we have the ability, but phase one states, so phase one says that we can put more restrictions. So when we go home tonight and we read the Executive Order 138, we can start picking and choosing what restrictions. And then but the thing is, though, is we need to align with the state unless evidence shows that we shouldn't.
All right. Commissioner Belcher, did you have something else to add on this?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I'll do my best, okay? So, I'll restate the motion. The motion was regarding the April 30th, what's the word for what we did? What's it called?
It's an executive order, or a
Local order.
declaration.
Okay, local order. That we align with the state with the exceptions of existing restrictions on the hotel industry. Is that what you
Yes.
said? Is that the spirit of it? We got all these peripherals, but that is that motion, right? Here's my friendly amendment. Contingent that COVID numbers remain manageable. And then I want to make a comment, okay? 138's coming out. Next conversation we have, we're going to deal with 138. But we'll deal with that at that time. This is about when that happened. I think Commissioner Penland, myself, was concerned about the communication, which I think we can learn from that, and we can grow from that. That addresses that, does it?
Yes.
Okay, that addresses that, and also you had made the comment about the contingent that COVID numbers remain manageable, and to the life and death issues, everybody's good with that. Everybody's.
I sure hope so.
I mean, everybody is. I mean, you know that. Commissioner Farrar, I appreciate your comments made. They were made very heartfelt, and I don't think anybody's trying to, paint anybody in any light. There's some frustration associated with that order, and there's a motion made, and so I'm trying to
All
bring
right,
that
so
back.
is there, do you accept the
I do
amendment?
accept it,
All right.
yes.
Okay.
So let's go and vote on this. I think we've had a good discussion. So, and that piece, I mean, it helps a little bit. I think it's the right idea, but honestly, I think it's just too vague. I mean, I think we really do. I think this is an area where the details matter. We need to hear from our health staff about their take on this, just kind of saying they're manageable. I get this. I mean, I agree with the sentiment, but I just feel like, this is a very complex issue. And for that reason, I would not want our staff to think that we are putting pressure on them in any way to not make recommendations for policies that will protect the public safety of this community. I honestly believe if we had adopted a policy like this 6 weeks ago, I think the additional protections we put here have been great. I think they have saved lives, and they will help bring this economy back. The parts of the country that have thousands of cases and tens of thousands of cases, when we had the last flu epidemic in this country, and the communities that were proactive rebounded much faster than those who did not, and also saw a lot less people get seriously ill and die. So I think we have done the right thing to have stronger protections than the state of North Carolina. And I will, I do not regret any of it. I'm glad we did it, and I'm not going to send any signal to our staff that as much as I want us to be aligned with the state, if we need to, that tool is in the toolbox. So, go ahead.
If I could, we're also talking to our community right now, and there's two things I just think it's important for us to make sure we're being very accurate and clear about. The new executive order, which is 138, is issued and signed and now law. And so just as a point of clarification, so our community knows that, we all need to go read it. As you said, staff are no doubt reading it right now. So that's what everyone should look to sort of as a reference point for what is now the law of North Carolina, effective 5 p.m. today. And the second one is just some back and forth. And again, anytime, I'm sorry? Friday.
It's Friday.
It was issued today. It goes into effect 5 p.m. Friday. Thank you very much for the clarification, sorry. It's just that if anyone is having medical concerns and needs medical treatment, they should seek it. And we should just be reinforcing that at every point. And nothing about any order that has been issued locally or at the state level would say someone who's having acute medical issues shouldn't seek care, and they absolutely should. So I just want to make sure we kind of close the loop on two threads that came up in the conversation before we go to vote. Thank you.
All right.
Well, I want to.
Final thoughts, and then we're going to vote.
It is,
Go ahead,
it's
Deb.
final thoughts, and I don't want anybody to think that anybody's putting pressure on staff to do things that are, this started from a conversation that April 30th, the order went out, and there was conversation that we thought was going to align more with the state, and it fell below that expectation. Everybody here is concerned about anyone that's sick, anyone that's seeking treatment, anyone that has passed away. And I do think that if we have good conversations around this, that we can come up with a very good policy. And it's going to be safe policy. I don't question anybody on this board about your concern for any citizen in Buncombe County. I believe you come from a good spot. Everybody, staff, everybody. We're not going to turn this into that. It's not going to become that. It's not who we are. We're not going to go down that road. And this came from, clearly, the frustration of the communication associated with that order. And that's where it needs to be. And it's not about whether we're protecting or not protecting. That's what it is. So going forward, when this comes out, the other one comes out, we need to have good conversations associated with it. And we'll take all the consideration from the staff and our health department in that. And the guy that made that, I'll just say this for the last thing. The guy that made that motion is pretty good at and has had an extensive and more experience than anybody on this board when it comes to protecting the health of the people in Buncombe County. So I know that came from a great spot and a great place in his heart. So I'll leave it there for me. I'm done.
I have one last comment I'd like to add. I'm sorry. Just so you understand where I'm coming from and how I feel about this motion is it's very simple for me. I will not undermine the expertise of our public health experts on our staff. It is our job to ask questions. It's our job to stay informed. It is their job to provide the best, most accurate data to us. And I can't support this because it is undermining the job that we've hired them to do.
I disagree, but.
All right.
Yeah. And
You get the last one,
yes,
Robert.
the last one.
Go ahead.
And I want to thank our staff for what they've done. A great
Absolutely.
job.
They're fantastic.
An excellent job.
Amazing.
But I just hope that our staff looks at it and, is in the middle here. But the one thing that has really got me laughing inside, and I'm not really happy outside, is this is not a party deal. Myself, Commissioner Belcher, and I think it's going to be 4-3, I don't know, is we're supporting our governor of the North Carolina, and the other party is going against him. So I got the last word. Thank you.
Sorry, got to respond to that. The governor has been very clear that he is very supportive. That we need a statewide policy so that there's consistent rules across the state that establish a baseline of public health safeguards. But he has absolutely affirmed the beneficial role that counties adopting, and cities in some cases, adopting stronger roles as they need to in helping combat this. So the governor's actively supported local communities, recognizing that while there's a certain threshold of protections that make sense everywhere, some areas, like a big tourism town and things like that, might need to do things differently. And I think the fact that we have done things differently is part of the reason that so many fewer people here have gotten sick and died compared to other places. I think it's not a coincidence. All in
Mr.
favor?
Chairman, please, I started it, may I have the last word? I'm not trying to undermine staff. That is not, I mean, you go back and look since I got here on March the 3rd and how many times I've praised this staff. I am not undermining our staff. But I would like to be involved in some of the conversation as to where we would move forward and this, so that's, I'm not undermining staff.
Yeah, okay.
And that's not, and it should not be taken that way. We have a great staff, and I've worked with them. I've worked with them from the start of this. So I know what they're doing over there, and this is not about that. So, thank you.
Okay, so let me just say, this has been challenging. Like, here's what I'd like to just share with the commission. I welcome input from everyone. I think the collective mind is beneficial in navigating all this. We're not all going to land in the same place. So I would just say, going forward, I hope we're mostly on the same page. I do think I think the differences here are getting, a lot narrower. So this isn't going to be a 7-0 vote, but I don't think that means we're a million miles apart on how this is likely to play out going forward. I think we'll look for opportunities for how we can, we've had to do a lot of things differently during this COVID-19 situation. This is one of them. And so we'll look for opportunities for how we can do better communication. We can always learn from that. I do want to just say, though, that, as the chair of the commission, I do have the authority to make certain actions under the state law. And the state law this was not an accident that they put this in here. It was done this way very deliberately. And it's very likely there will be needs to continue to amend the ordinance going ahead that will need to be done outside these regularly scheduled meetings. So I just want to say, that I welcome input. We'll look for ways to do better communication. And I hope we're pretty close on this stuff going ahead. But I do just want to say out loud that might need to be done again, because there's some things that need to get taken between every 2 weeks. And I think the things that will happen soon are going to be things that everyone here is going to like, because it's going to be further providing some flexibility and aligning with the state. So I think there'll be things that people will like, but that is the process that's there, and we will need to use it probably. So, all right.
So you're exactly right. You have the authority, state of emergency here. Yeah. But I think that really meant if it was something that had to be decided in 30 minutes, 45 minutes, we had 4.5 hours just for a quick email. One click, it would have hit every one of us.
I hear
and that's.
I hear you. Okay. I do. We'll try to do better, but I don't want to set some expectation that there won't be any other amendments to the order outside the regularly scheduled meetings, because I'm afraid that may not be realistic. So, but it doesn't mean we can't communicate more and things like that. We will endeavor to do it. Okay.
Do we have a second on the amended motion, just to make sure all the T's are crossed? We do not. Okay.
Thank you for bringing that.
I thought the maker of the original motion accepted.
Accepted it.
Is that all they got to
Then
do?
you need a second on the friendly amendment.
Second. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
But now we can vote on the combined amendment, right? Okay. All right. So all in favor of the motion as amended? So please raise your hand. Okay. Those opposed? All right.
All right.
The motion fails 4-3.
Good conversation, Commissioner.
I will make a motion. So that was too broad for me.
Okay.
But, the motion around the idea of 50 people at a funeral service. So that's not currently the county's policy.
Correct.
So that is a policy I'd be comfortable with. You know, it's very specific. Again, I think the fact that the county's policy on public gatherings, I think it's been one of the most important pieces of our success. But that is a policy I'd be willing to support. So I will make a motion that we amend the order to allow at funeral services up to 50 people contingent upon social distancing.
And I'll second it.
Make a motion before I got you.
He's already
Second.
said.
What about worship? I mean, well, wait a minute, you gotta listen to
I'm
me.
just saying that's not in the motion.
I asked to have a motion to your motion. That, I mean, of our church, myself and Commissioner Whiteside talked about, I think our churches that hold 600-700 people and got 100 people there, we can gather it, same as a funeral. I mean, I'm a strong believer in worshiping, and it's different. Now, my pastor said we can do 4 services. We can do a service for elderly and then have temperature, wear the mask and everything. So I want to put a motion.
Okay, we can only do one motion at a time, right? So,
Yeah, so we'll come back to this.
So let's debate the motion that's on the table.
So you got a first and a second here.
Yes.
Okay. On,
Can you clarify, Brownie, if are you referring to?
funerals.
No, I understand that you're referring to funerals, but presumably we're about to have a process wherein our staff will assess 138, come back to us with recommendations A to Z about the ways in which we align with the state and the ways in which we might depart within 24 to 48 hours, I'm guessing. So I just want to get clarification sort of on how you would envision that as part of that, we would make sure that funerals could.
Yeah,
accommodate up to 50 people.
It's just one of these other policy pieces that's been out there. It's a hard one, right? Because it is such an important part of, the whole process of life and death, right? Is a funeral service. It's one of the most profound things that happens in families' lives. But as you pointed out earlier, it's been known to be a place where a lot of transmission of this illness has occurred. The whole problem in Georgia was in funeral services. Of course, they didn't know. I mean, part of the difference and part of the reason that I personally could support that is that we now know how deadly this illness is, and so with social distancing, hopefully the kind of stuff that happened in Georgia and other places we can avoid.
Brownie.
So, yes, sir.
We need to point out, though, in that you can social distance. Some of these small churches, you push to do that.
Yes. So
that's a requirement. That would be a requirement.
Okay.
So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Sir, could I give you an amendment to your motion? And would you be willing to say that you would permit funerals up to 50 as long as social distancing can be maintained in conjunction with Executive Order 131 that puts in the 20% capacity of the fire code or 10 people per 1,000 square feet? I don't want a small chapel to put 50 people in it.
That's it.
So,
That's
but
it.
if that chapel can do, fire code says 100, then they can have 20. So
I'm fine with all of the details you just referenced as being part of the motion.
Okay.
And I'll second that. So.
Okay.
So,
All right. Yes, sir.
just my comments on it, really quickly. I think that what's really cool about our conversation tonight is what happens when you start having conversations, is that, to me, I don't know anything about the funeral business other than the fact that I've been to a lot of them, and they are the most, if they tell you to line up a certain way, you line up a certain way. So, I think they can take care of, everything that's been said, the specifics of it. And I do think, Chairman, you're right that I think we're in a lot better place. I think people understand, and I think they would. I think they've already figured out how to do this and to let people grieve properly is an awesome thing to be able to do. So I'd be glad to support it.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just doing a quick search on the new executive order, very briefly, there is guidance on funerals. So assuming we approve this tonight and there's new guidance, how are we going to change that?
Well, we'll change it then.
So we'll need to have then another meeting to make
Well-
those changes.
In that spirit, could I make a friendly amendment that may get shot down?
Let's see what it is.
It is truly intended in a friendly way. Can the motion be that we give instructions to staff to make sure to address, to create the most compassionate, humane policies that are safe in the updated order that will be forthcoming? And kind of pay special attention to that with a goal that we be as close to complying with the state as we safely can. I don't want us to, I continue to just kind of stay in this lane of like, the process that has worked very well from a public safety perspective in Buncombe County is giving staff, public health experts and staff, the time to think and digest and come back with localized recommendations that make sense. And I just would like to offer that as a friendly amendment in the spirit of the original, in the spirit of the amended motion.
You know, I'm not against it. I mean, but this is, part of the reason I'm a little bit more comfortable with this than the previous one is that this is it's just very specific. It's a very specific policy.
Yeah.
It's where the state has been. And so I don't, again, as we've said, we don't know exactly what's come out today, but I don't think we were getting any signals that that piece was going to become more restrictive than what it's been in the past. So this would basically just be one of those other pieces that we could bring into consistency with where the state is at as of right now. Maybe when the new thing goes into effect on Friday, there's some more nuances to what the state's doing, but I don't think it's going to be more restrictive than they've been doing so far. Avril, do you have any observations on that question?
I don't know if it's more restrictive, but I would like to get some guidance as we would work through this tomorrow. That's our plan. We would bring it back. So if you can tell us you want to meet Wednesday or Thursday morning, that we can go over that in detail, or how do you want to go forward next? I would love to have Fletcher's and Dr. Mullendorf's insight into the order that it stands now, knowing that your guidance is to make sure that we align as much as possible with the state. If that includes 50 for worship services or funerals or whatever that looks like, if you would give us that latitude to do that tomorrow. And if you want to have a meeting tomorrow night at 5 p.m., give us the day. Or if you want to have a meeting Thursday morning before we have the public briefing at 2:30, just give us that guidance and that time and that latitude and flexibility to take a look at what's in the order. Given the conversations tonight, we know where you're headed. Give us that chance to work through that. So we would truly have an idea of where public health is, what's in that order, knowing that we want to align with the governor more than we have in the past. I think that what we were saying before is to more align what we were saying, not truly align, but to be more aligned. And what I'm hearing from you guys tonight is that we do that and get that done. So give us that attitude to do that tomorrow and come back with you.
I think you can.
Can we do that, or this meeting would have to be continued? Do we have to have 48 hours?
No, we can continue. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just continue the meeting
Continue the
till a
meeting?
date and time certain.
And we could even, we could, I believe, under our policies, even meet virtually tomorrow, right?
Yes, under new state
So we
law and
could-
under new bylaws.
If we wanted to continue this meeting and schedule a virtual meeting for tomorrow and hear staff recommendations to maximize.
I still think you
If-
could
if-
do that and vote on the chairman's amendment and still be fine.
If I may, WLS is reporting
Because
tonight.
they're going to get specific, staff will get specific on what that new order is and come back with recommendations on it, but
WLS is going to report tonight, it's on the news now, that we have a World War II veteran of this county who just had this funeral today, and he was wanting full military burial, and he was denied that.
Yeah.
And had we aligned, Mr. Chairman, then that could have happened. So I'm just throwing it out there. I do like this thing here so that we can honor those folks.
yeah, and I wouldn't, I personally, my opinion is I wouldn't wait on that. You know, we can still get direction, we can still extend the meeting if we have to. We can still do that, but I do think we have to be really careful with numbers when we talk about people that have passed away, and it's sad. And, at some point there's a lot of people, new babies have been born. There's a lot of people that have passed away for other things, that's good information. And if we can help them, and I think, Chairman, what you're saying does that, so.
Okay. I kind of agree with what everyone said, but I think we should just approve this. It is a very discrete piece, and it's a policy idea that's been, it's been debated for a while on different
Yeah, it
sides. I
has.
don't think there's a lot of, part of the things, again, around the whole previous policy, part of what is, makes me more uncomfortable is when statutes are very ambiguous, very vague, very open to interpretation. A lot of the state policies, that was kind of the heartburn around the state policies, like, anybody can interpret this to think their business is running just fine. And to me, that was just the wrong spirit of trying to encourage people to stay home and stay safe. So let's vote on this motion, but I generally agree with everything you just said, Jasmine.
I agree.
I'm
I'm going to vote against this for the reasons I've
Yeah.
expressed, but I absolutely agree that we should move as quickly as we
Yeah.
can to make funerals as accessible as possible
Okay.
and as safe as possible. So just to
all right.
clarify that.
Yes, sir.
To make it clear, are you not accepting Commissioner Beecher's?
That's right. We're just going to vote on the motion to allow funeral services up to 50 with the additional details that you can listen to that Commissioner Penland mentioned
That's
around
a-
fire code, 20%. So let's go ahead and just vote on that,
And
that
that's
piece right
effective
now.
now.
That would go into effect,
Now.
Go into effect.
that would go into effect now, yes. That's right.
Okay.
All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, all right.
To
Going back to Avril's suggestion, would be to come back together in a couple of days. So like tomorrow, we have a chance to kind of review all this.
Correct.
And if we want to make further changes, we could do that
Correct.
at that time.
Yes, sir. And that would be the only topic of conversation really is to
Yeah.
go through that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine with that.
So, just to go back to Commissioner Presley's thought on House of Worship, what Commissioner Penland said, does the state allow 50 currently in their policy? 50 in House of Worship? Is it
Yes,
up to 50?
which includes your clergy.
So if Commissioner Presley, I know you're wanting to make a motion on that, but if you could make that and tag the information that Commissioner Penland said about the amount of people in a, does, Commissioner Penland, do you see that applying to his?
Well, I have another, pull my motion or don't even talk. I would like to see if tomorrow, a lot of pastors are meeting to see how they can do. If they would set up a meeting with our county manager, staff, and let the experts tell what they have in mind instead of someone like me speaking for them.
And we have a faith call scheduled with all the pastors that sign up, and we send that out every week. So I think that is on Thursday. Thursdays at 4.
Yeah, this is a meeting tomorrow at 12.
So they meet, and then they come on and tell us what they've discussed, usually
Yeah,
that Thursday.
hope so.
So if you want to give me information for tomorrow at 12, we can take a look and see who can be available to listen in on that call.
Okay.
So, let me come back to this too, because this is very important also, and it's specific. One of the things that occurred with the automobile group is they submitted a letter back to us. I was actually on the phone with a pastor today, and they were sharing with me what they were planning. You know, they're kind of thinking in phases, and how they can get back to worship and small piece, this, and this. And they would, their ultimate part of ministry, the last thing that they would be doing would involve, what they do quite a bit is going out into the public, and that very close contact that they have with a lot of people as they do their ministry. But what he had shared with me was, it was very good. And I think if the result of that meeting, if we could get the information that you're talking about, Commissioner Presley, and maybe I could get this other one that came today, I said, send it to me. I won't use your name, but it was great. And so many of the businesses and so many of the house of worships, they have figured out how to do this, and they're figuring out how as people start coming, to do smaller groups and things. So if we could give guidance on that, it'd be awesome.
All right, so we're not going to do anything on that tonight. So just in terms of process for further conversations. Ms. Pender, what would you suggest?
So I was suggesting a 5 p.m. That would give us the full day to really get through the governor's orders and put our notes together, because we do have several other meetings that we're talking with industry tomorrow
Yeah.
as well. But that would give staff an opportunity to put it together, come in and present, and go point by point of what we're recommending. So if you look at the governor's order, he has what is in place now and what the changes are. We'll do something similar, what's in place now, what the changes are, and how do we align or not. And we can have that presented tomorrow evening at 5. Hopefully it'll be an hour or two.
Are you sure that's enough time?
Yeah, would you?
So, I mean, we
it's,
can
you know,
go the
so
next
it's
day.
Tuesday,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like,
fine.
We can do
But
Thursday.
So it will be first thing Thursday morning, because we have the order at 2:30 that we would want to have the press briefing, unless we push
Fine.
that back later.
That makes
So-
sense.
well,
the
I just,
goal would
you
be
know,
to-
I just, you know, I want to make sure the staff have the time
Sure.
to think this through carefully
They're
and
working
bring
on
us
it.
a recommendation that, you know, that they're,
Right.
so if we needed it to be Thursday morning or Thursday at noon,
So I wanted to we would have a draft. My idea would be to get your input tomorrow night and give us time to go back and refine it Thursday morning and have a final draft that we can then email on Thursday without having a second meeting. That would be the thought process right now.
okay, if you're comfortable with that, I'm fine with that.
So all by email?
Pardon?
All by email today?
So I was hoping for another face-to-face or a Zoom or something where we can get interaction similar
Yeah.
to tonight based on what
Why don't we
present.
why don't we Zoom Thursday morning? Seems easier.
No,
Yeah.
staff wouldn't have time.
To turn
Well,
it
why,
around.
Have all that
okay,
stuff.
all right, why do we I don't think we have to do it at 2:30 on Thursday.
The media briefing on
Yeah.
Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, we can do a media briefing whenever.
Announce it, have it.
Well, they
So-
can announce it.
So we can do the media briefing a little bit later on
Yeah.
Thursday, but we do have a ministers and faith-based call Thursday at 4. And we go from one into the other, so we would like to be finished with one to do the other, but we have enough staff that we can separate. If you want to do Thursday morning to talk about this with staff, give staff Thursday noon time to get it worked out, and then do a media briefing later Thursday or Friday morning, we can move that around. But the expectation in the community now has been Thursday at 2:30, people are tuning in.
And if I might, I just want to make sure that we're continuing this meeting to a date and time certain, and we need to make sure that the IT part will work. We don't have to see each other, but we need to be able to hear each other, and the public needs to know how to access it.
Oh, you mean if it's a Zoom or Teams call?
Yes, either way.
Okay. The suggestion is 5 p.m.
5
Wednesday.
p.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm
Well-
sorry, we'll have some kind of meeting at 5 p.m. Wednesday. Is that the
That's what
suggestion?
I'm asking.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll just come back here.
We can just come back here.
So I'll make a motion that we schedule this meeting to be continued for 5 p.m. on Wednesday, tomorrow, which is May the 6th.
So you're making a motion to,
Continue.
yeah, that's
Second to
right.
the motion?
Oh, yeah, second.
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 Okay, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
So I'm gonna move,
Okay.
so can I move that we adjourn?
Oh, we're continuing, we're not adjourned.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right,
We do
sorry.
have public comment. Let's move on to public comment.
We got public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're continuing, okay?
Let's do public comment.
But I could leave. No, I'm just kidding.
Mr. Chairman, sir.
Yes, sir.
Before public comment, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this discussion. That's where the thing initiated from, and I just want to say thank you to everybody in here. And I just want to say that there are a lot more things that unite us than divide us, so. And I got that from a TV show, so.
And Mr. Chairman, I just checked, and the public would access this continued meeting tomorrow at 5 the same way they did today. They just tune into Facebook Live.
Thank you, Mr. Free.
Yeah, we just
All right,
come
I do
back
have a
here
couple of
later.
pages of,
Continue the public comment till tomorrow evening.
no,
You can vote to read all this.
we voted to do this. All right. We've got several comments. First is from Hunter Ogletree. On behalf of the Western North Carolina Workers Center, an organization that serves 200 workers in the hospitality industry, we would like to address the actions of the Buncombe County Tourism Development Authority. We hear that some folks are encouraged by the bill that just passed and authorizes $5 million from the TDPF to be used for support of tourism businesses once they are ready to reopen in Buncombe County. While this is a step in the right direction, we can't help but notice that our constituents, people who have dedicated their lives to making visitors' experience in Western North Carolina warm, welcoming, and memorable, are left out of this relief effort. Our members have been thrust into a humanitarian crisis due to the sudden economic loss and cannot pay bills and feed their families on the promise that there may be jobs once the county is able to reopen. These workers who have worked to shape the culture and industry of this region require emergency support now and are not included in this TDA fund. Additionally, we are in communication and solidarity with the points made by Faith for Justice and hope that you'll be taking those points into account as you make decisions moving forward. While the steps made through the legislature are headed in the right direction, they do not provide support to the workers who live here now and are facing loss of employment. We hope you will take these concerns into consideration as you continue to make decisions and influence legislation and emergency relief funding opportunities. The next comment is from Ashley Cooper, who lives in Asheville. I'm writing to inquire about how you will be using your leadership and relationships to influence the next steps with the $5 million from the Buncombe County TDA. It's hopeful to see that the General Assembly recognizes the need for our county to access additional funds to address the economic crisis, and yet I hope you see in their actions an opportunity to make further changes in how our occupancy tax dollars are used. While this is a step in the right direction, our community deserves more. These funds are being taken from the 25% that's already allocated to the community benefit and county infrastructure projects. We're going to be losing sales tax as a government, while previously those funds could have been used to access by nonprofits, now they are only available to businesses and only once those businesses reopen. We are currently facing a humanitarian aspect of this crisis. People need emergency funds now. It seems absurd that the funds are sitting unused in the county TDA advertising budget and the reserve fund while people are suffering in their homes. We've heard the claims that legally nothing can be done with that money, and yet we also just witnessed the legal changes can be made. And I believe some of you commissioners were able to weigh in on the new bill. So we need you now. Is there anything that you can do to make more emergency relief funds available for the tourism industry workers? And looking forward, do you recognize that necessity of the opportunity of tax dollars with advertising taking 75% and only 25% going to community needs, that this must be changed? Additionally, what specifically are you doing to attend to the needs of businesses owned by people of color? There are so few, we cannot afford to lose any of them. And the workers, whether it is immigrant workers or black workers who do not feel safe navigating the social service requirements that were necessary to access the One Buncombe Fund, or whether it is businesses owned or run by people of color, we must be doing everything possible to address the racial inequities in our community, making decisions that are mindful of the historical racism that have been baked into our county's practices, and ensuring that workers are being cared for during this time of crisis. I believe we're capable of governing and serving our community in ways that match our values. Let's keep working together to bring these ideals to life now. We can do things differently during this crisis, and we need your leadership to influence these next steps. Next comment is from Keaton Hill, from Faith for Justice Asheville, Carolina Jews for Justice West, Steering Committee, Grace Covenant Presbyterian Church Elder. On behalf of Faith for Justice, Carolina Jews for Justice, and in collaboration with local residents at grassroots organizations, I write regarding next steps for the Buncombe County TDA. $5 million allocated for reopening businesses is a step in the right direction. Thank you. We believe we can do more. As people who live out our moral convictions through the pursuit of justice, we understand that we are called to dismantle white supremacy in ourselves, our religious institutions, and our government systems. We also know that moral conviction surpasses all political parties and human divisions. In love and truth, we call on you, our elected leaders, to lead with compassion and courage. Please recognize and respond to this point. Hoteliers have profited greatly off of workers, but there are $0 being allocated for workers. No commitment is included in an equitable distribution of those funds. How will businesses owned by people of color be centered in receiving these funds? Where is emergency relief funds being made available to black and brown workers? TDPF funds were already purposed for community projects and community benefit. Now, when our local governments have less revenue to spend on those projects because of the decrease in sales tax, TDA money that was going to support community projects is repurposed to the business sector. At a time when tourism advertising is unnecessary, the tax funds allocated to advertising sits idle while tourism workers are in crisis. Some of you wrote the bill that leaves out the most impacted in our community and left the 75-25 split in place. We need your moral courage to right this injustice. According to this bill, funds will be dispersed until the state reopens. Our community is struggling now. While the steps made through the legislature last week are responding to needs, they simply were not enough to support the people that live here. We look forward to your leadership and working with you as we move forward to build a more just society in these trying times. And the last comment is from Kim Roney. Today, I'm writing in solidarity with Faith for Justice, Carolina Jews for Justice, the Western North Carolina Workers Center, and concerned citizens. While the recently passed legislation to make emergency relief fundings available for business from our TDA funds is a step in the right direction, there are still concerns that require your leadership. These funds are pulling needed infrastructure funding from the 25% TPDF funds allocated for community projects and benefit. As we anticipate projected sales tax decreases, we needed those funds to be increased, not decreased. Now the funds will go to for-profit businesses again instead of nonprofit grants and county infrastructure. The 75% allocated for marketing is not being accessed. This further demonstrates why the 75-25 split of our occupancy taxes must change. Many businesses and employees in our community are struggling now with zero funds made available to workers through this action and not until the tourism business returns. Buncombe County TDA has unused funds in their advertising and reserve budget. We need creative, inspirational leaders to ensure marketing dollars are kept in our local economy. Accountability for funds distributed needs to be carefully to ensure use of an equity lens so distribution doesn't further perpetuate inequality in our community. Thanks for your consideration. All right, as we discussed a few minutes ago, we're going to be continuing this meeting tomorrow at 5 p.m. Ms. Pender, is there anything else we need to cover before we leave? So we don't have to vote on anything. We can just walk away, right? Okay. All right. Thank you all for, thank you to everyone who helped us out this evening. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.